All right. Hi, Michael Skinner. How are you?
I'm well, and how are you, Elaine?
I'm doing good, Mike. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. Yet stand, thrive, flourish, prosper.
Uh,
And looking forward to talking to you, hearing more of your story and things that you have going on in life today.
it's th- you're welcome, and thank you for having me. I take this as an honor when folks like yourself will reach out and ask me to be part of what you're doing in healing the world because I'm very aware, very mindful that there's tons of great people out there that you could be chatting to tonight. So thank you for having me
Yeah.
on here.
Well, I love seeing what you're doing with your music, and we'll talk more about that later.
Okay.
Um, all right. And so we titled the segment tonight, It Shouldn't Hurt to Be a Child. So we'll talk more about what that means to you. Just to let everybody know that Michael Skinner, he is a survivor of sexual abuse. He's also a singer songwriter, and we'll get more information on his music later. So, Mike, I just wanted to kind of start with just asking you just to tell us a little bit about when you were sexually abused.
It started because as a toddler,
Mm,
um, right up through my early teenage years. So it went on for a long, long time, and it was
mm,
going on within my family home because both of my parents were pedophiles,
mm,
and what made it harder was they had other friends who were pedophiles. So it wasn't just my parents abusing me. There was a circle of people doing this. And there was even the way I describe it, my father's group of friends, they were like thugs because, he was a big guy. They were brutal, but there were men and females in these pedophile groups. My mother had a group that was the church that she attended. It was a congregational church, and there was a pastor that was part of this. Now, that wasn't the whole church, it was just some of them. So I
mm-hmm,
can't tell you who or
mm-hmm,
what. It's just
mm-hmm.
um, that was that was devastating.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
couldn't make heads or tails
yeah, yeah.
of my life as a young person. I
Right,
couldn't.
right. I can imagine. And it was others, yourself, and there were other children,
There were
yeah,
other
that were
children there.
involved. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so yeah.
Yeah. So was this something that you were able to tell anyone? Or was there maybe anyone who found out, who maybe tried to step in or anything like that? No,
Nothing,
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
Uh, again, I'm guessing that the fear of telling, because my parents were brutal, but my father he was scary.
Mm-hmm.
He was
Yeah.
very scary, as well as some of his friends.
Yeah.
They were very scary people. So I imagine I was just like so many other children. You were just afraid to tell.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
kept it to yourself. You're thinking, no, it's just me. It's blaming yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I do believe, but again, it was only years later looking back. I do believe that I had a fourth grade teacher that suspected because he was always asking me questions about my parents and my home life, but I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't answer him.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think he was savvy. I didn't have the words, and I think it was just out of fear.
Yeah. Now, did you have siblings, Mike?
I'm the oldest. There were five of us. I've lost two of my brothers to
Mm.
suicide.
Mm.
So,
I'm sorry.
uh, thanks. So that
Yeah.
was hard. So,
Yeah.
and I know that they were abused in the family as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
I do believe if they hadn't been abused like that, they'd still be here today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Mike, as a child, how do you do that? How do you keep going? How do you cope? How do you How do you keep
For
going?
me, what it was magical for me was music, just listening to it,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
just just
Yeah.
just listening, Elaine.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm a senior citizen, so I grew up hearing, the oldies stuff from the 50s. That was an interesting dynamic of both my parents because they both love music. My
Mm.
mother was actually an exceptional singer. She had a beautiful voice. So there was always music in the house, the radio stations, they had an incredible record collection.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be rock and roll, it could be Frank Sinatra, doo-wop, you name it, jazz.
Mm-hmm.
It was in there. So I was listening all the time. And
Yeah.
then then I got to see the Beatles perform on Ed Sullivan, and that was
Mm.
it. So now I was loving listening. Now it was like, I
Wow.
want to be like them. I want to perform.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I learned I was always tapping and not understanding, but then it made sense to me one day, Elaine. I was listening to the radio and I'm tapping along to the song, and I'm anticipating the drum rolls that were coming up. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, aha, I can be a drummer. So that was what I set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there was music. So by the age of 12, I was playing in a local rock and roll band, and we were getting paid to play at parties, teen centers, dances, junior high school dances.
Mm.
It was great. So this
Yeah.
is cool.
Yeah.
The other thing that was helpful for me in terms of healing, again, it's hindsight looking back, saying, "Wow, this is what helped keep me alive."
Yeah.
Um, I was born in Boston. I lived there and in Cambridge, Mass, up till the age of 6. So that's the city. So
Mm-hmm.
but at the age of 6, we moved up to Billerica, which is like 18, 20 miles outside of both of those cities. And I mean, there was forests, there were fields, there were these two huge forests on either side of my house.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent
Yeah.
hours in there. I,
Yeah.
I built tree forts. I
Yeah.
traveled all along rock walls, the
Yeah.
streams. So nature and
Mm-hmm.
music were
Yeah.
the same things that have helped me today is
Uh-huh.
what was helping
Helped
me
you
as a
then.
child.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting how many people that I've spoken to have mentioned nature. I've talked to several people who talked about trees. They had a tree that they would go to, that they would climb up. They had, just being out, being able to run through a field, and those kinds of things that, were so helpful to them. That's interesting.
And what was fascinating, you'd go into the forest and all of a sudden everything would be quiet because they know you're
Mm-hmm.
there. And
Mm.
you're talking about trees. There was some pine
Mm.
trees I could sit under, or these big oak trees. Or I made a triple decker tree fort, and I had tree stands all over
Mm.
throughout the forest.
Wow.
After I was sitting still, wherever I was, under the tree or up in the tree fort, the forest
Mm.
would start to come alive again, and I'd start seeing all the animals,
Yeah.
whether it was birds, whether it was a fox. It
Yeah.
was it was just this was fascinating stuff to
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Magical. Yeah.
right. It was magical.
Magical. Yeah. Yeah. When you talk about the music, I was the same way with music and books, magazines. Those were kind of the things. And I found that through those mediums, you know, actually gave me the words to my thoughts and to my feelings, because I didn't have the words otherwise. I couldn't have verbalized what I was thinking or feeling, but through music and through reading, I could find, the words to what was going on with me. Yeah.
And the same for me too was
Yeah.
books. When I learned to read, and I was
Yeah.
always reading above my grade level,
Mm-hmm.
I'd go to the library and I was taking out books of about people or times of war or
Mm-hmm.
terrible times, the Holocaust. I wanted to learn how people survived
Survived. Wow.
these events. So they were my teachers.
Wow.
It wasn't that I wanted to read about horrible things. I wanted to learn how people survived,
Yeah.
whether if
Did he get
someone was
through?
going across in a wagon train, just
Mm-hmm.
I read about the Trail of Tears. I
Yeah.
I just read everything and anything I could about people surviving horrible
Wow.
things.
Wow.
So
It's interesting. It's interesting what we do and how we find ways to, to get through. Yeah. Um, so let me ask you, as a male, having gone through something like that, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings as a male person, about these things that have happened to you?
it took a long time for me to understand that there was nothing I could have done.
Mm-hmm.
Because years later, I learned to defend myself. I learned to use my fists and all the rest.
Mm.
Many years later, I went into the martial arts to learn to channel
Hmm.
my rage. But
Yeah.
I learned to take care of myself, but I couldn't take care of myself at 6 years old or
Right.
10. They were
Mm-hmm.
bigger than me. And so that toxic masculinity, tough thing that you're supposed to be tough and
Mm-hmm.
strong and not allow
Mm-hmm.
these things to happen,
Right.
that took me years to finally say, no, I was a little boy. I was a little
Mm-hmm.
boy. I couldn't have
Mm-hmm.
prevailed. I
Mm-hmm.
I did try to fight them back.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
I
mhm.
lost.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so then there's the shame.
Mhm,
Always, there was a deep shame that felt
mhm,
inside. I
mhm,
always felt dirty inside. I never felt clean. So,
mhm, mhm.
um,
Yeah, yeah.
never. If it wasn't for music,
Mm.
I don't know if I would have dated, females because, you're drumming in a band, people come up and talk to you, but I didn't
Mhm.
have I just felt
Yeah,
horrible inside.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Um, so were there any did you take on any, I wanna say, maybe acting out type of behaviors, things that might have been, considered maybe negative, self-damaging, things like that?
Um, the fighting, I was always in fights in school,
Mhm,
after school.
mhm,
Then drinking age was 18. I was in bars. I used to go
mhm,
to the wrong type of bars
mhm.
to get into fights. I was
Mhm,
taking out my anger, my rage at the wrong people.
mhm,
I always looked for opportunities to stick up for other people, so it was my excuse to
mm.
put my nose into something where it shouldn't
Yeah,
belong.
yeah.
The other thing was, uh, I'm not proud of this, but I think this is true of a lot of us. I was highly promiscuous,
Mhm, mhm.
so
Yeah,
I that's all I knew.
yeah,
I was taught to be a
yeah.
sexual object, so
Right.
that's
Yeah,
all I knew. And
yeah.
then this is where I would feel horrible. It wasn't that so much looking to have a one night stand because I would like someone, but then I would leave and they're thinking, oh, he just dumped me because we went to bed. No, it was because I felt horrible inside and I didn't want them to know my secret because
Yeah.
then they'd leave me. So I'm pushing them away first
Right. Yeah.
before they could push me away. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that was I drank too much I mean, I was
Mhm,
drinking as a young boy and then I was in
mhm,
teenage years. Right up
mhm,
till about age 20, I was drinking too much. I never did drugs. I'm
mhm,
grateful for that, but
mhm.
I drank too much and then I just started cutting that back and
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. All of what you said, I get it, and it's certainly understandable. Um, and definitely with the, I drank too much and I did too many drugs.
right.
Yeah, it's nothing short of a miracle that I'm even, still sitting here today the
I,
way that I ingested these things. Yeah, really.
I,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
the millions of survivors of childhood abuse that are out there, we survived and
Mhm.
we've learned to thrive and we're doing things.
Yeah.
That's amazing,
It is
So
amazing. Yeah.
so the pat on the back to us for what we did, because
Yeah, thank
we're
God. Yeah.
talking about nature and music and books. We knew what we needed to do to heal, We
Yeah.
just didn't have the language to say, "Oh, I think I'm going to read a book today."
Right. Right.
You just knew to
Exactly.
do it.
Just knew to do it exactly because it made you feel better or feel
Yeah.
yeah. So Mike, what has your I want to say healing process, like what did that look like for you, let's say from your 20s to maybe where you are now? What kind of steps did you take to help
Um,
you?
when the birth of my daughter helped me to stabilize, and now I had someone that was dependent upon me, that helped to ground me. I was still a
Mm,
wild child. I was still, a
mm,
rock and roll musician and band.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
but I was more grounded. Now I had a sense of responsibility, and this was the first time I felt love.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, and that was just,
Yeah,
that's a
that's a
miraculous
huge
thing
one, right? Yeah.
to
And
feel love,
real connection.
a connect. So
Yeah.
just slowing down. I was always a workaholic, still staying busy because I was gigging all the time. I was touring a lot. But then I started attending adult children of alcoholics
Hmm.
meetings, and that
Mm-hmm.
was really helpful. So
Wow.
I would go to a couple different groups each week to just.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing was hiking a lot, and then as I mentioned, I got into the martial arts. It wasn't to learn how to take care of myself. I needed to find a way to channel. I still had this rage.
Great. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to go into the martial arts, and my instructor, him saying to us, if it's not life threatening, walk away. That was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my father's words were, if they say take them out.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
this guy's
Yeah.
saying, if it's not life threatening, walk. So
Yeah.
that being in music, just the attending the adult chill of alcoholics, that helped. And
That was a big piece.
then the trauma came back to bite me, if you will. I
Mm.
did fall apart for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my business. I couldn't perform. Everything just fell apart. And then
Mm-hmm.
finding support groups,
Mm-hmm.
one for child abuse. I found
Mm-hmm.
support groups. I used to drive into Boston for, adult children those of us who are adults who were sexually abused as children.
Mm-hmm.
I started attending support groups for mental health, depression.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it was a mix
Yeah.
of things, and just
Yeah.
reading again, trying to
Yeah.
understand what is this. They're saying I have PTSD. So what is this? What
Yeah.
is what is major depression? I wanted to
Right.
learn how to get through that.
Yeah.
And
How
that's a
old?
long process. That
Yes, for
doesn't happen
sure.
overnight.
Exactly. How old were you when your daughter was born?
21.
Oh, 21. Wow. So young still.
I was a young dad.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have
Very
any
young
other
dad.
children or?
Yeah. So we ended up. So I was with my ex-wife for 21 years. We
Oh,
ended up
wow.
having 5 children. So yeah.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I always think that it's really awesome that in spite of all of that, that ugliness as a kid and all, like we could still, kind of have that, get married and have children and, because at some point in there, I think you feel like that kind of stuff could never happen, you
And,
know.
and that's where I'm grateful for so many of us. We've broken that cycle, trying to
Hmm.
end that intergenerational cycle of
Yeah.
trauma,
Yeah.
because I don't forgive my parents, but I don't hate them, if
Hmm.
that makes
Hmm.
but I also have empathy for them for what they went through as children.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't find a way to stop it. So
Yeah.
I learned to stop it. And
Hmm.
so there's a part of me can be very angry at them what they did, and
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
sad at what happened,
Sure.
but at the same time I'm thinking, once upon a time they were little kids and this stuff was being done to them,
To them,
and
yeah.
they didn't break the cycle, which is
Yeah.
sad. So
Yeah.
so that's where I find the beauty of shows of like what you're doing and what others, they
Mhm.
write a book, whatever
Mhm.
folks are doing to raise that awareness to
Yeah.
break the cycle.
Break the cycle. Yeah, it's important. It's important. So what happened, if you don't mind my asking, like what happened to your parents? Have they, passed on or
He boy, he passed away many years ago from his
Mhm.
drinking. Uh I think he was like 53, maybe
Mm.
55.
Mhm.
I don't know what's up with her. I know she's in her 80s, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
imagine she's old and frail. I
Yeah.
I disconnected from them decades ago,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
don't know.
understand. I understand that. Um, so tell us about your music. So you're a songwriter, singer. What do you write about? Where do you perform?
I the songs I like to think of it as I write songs about life, love, loss, and hope. So yes, I'm a survivor of childhood trauma, abuse, and I've had trauma in my life
Mhm.
as an adult. But that's not the only thing. I write songs just about life. So I
Mhm.
can play in a setting, whether it's a coffee house, a pub, or a bar, or a college, or anywhere, a conference. And unless I say this is about the song could just be here. It's about life, or it's
Yeah.
about love,
Yeah.
it's about loss.
Yeah.
But there are particular songs, something like "Walk with Me." You're gonna get it. You're gonna because that is my angry song, but it's also a song of hope. The anger that I felt for those when I was diagnosed with PTSD and depression, that now
Mhm.
all of a sudden you're mentally ill and they just were treating me like a child.
Mhm.
I have the opposite side of that. I have a song called Joy, which is about my giving thanks to those that have been in my life that still stood by me. I have a
Mhm.
song By My Side, which is about friendship and peer support.
Wow.
I have a song
Wow.
called Pirates. And so to me, it's a metaphor of the pirates in life. So my pirates in life, because pirates take things from you, but the pirates in your life may be something totally different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I have a song called, it's a long title, short song, Songs for the Keys to Your Life.
Mm.
And if you hear it, you're like, oh, that's a pretty good song. But how that was written was because I'm addressing trauma disconnects us
Mhm.
from others and it disconnects us from ourselves.
Mhm.
So how can you be singing the songs that are the keys to your life if you're disconnected from yourself?
Wow.
So the song is gently saying, find, get back to who you are. What is
Mhm.
it that's inside that drives you? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I have I I address the social inequities in songs. I have songs talking about the love I have felt. I have songs talking about being hurt horribly from a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
mix.
Yeah.
And so I drummed for a good part of my life, and that's how I made a living touring as a drummer in rock bands. But it was in the early 90s, mid 90s, I picked up the guitar, taught myself to play, started writing songs and singing,
Mhm.
and here
Yeah.
we are today. So
Yeah. So it's just you and your guitar,
me and my
and you
guitar.
perform,
I've
throughout the country,
performed,
or how do you?
I've been all over the country and as far away as Hawaii. So I've been in coffee houses, pubs, colleges, universities, lots of conferences, because a lot of times I'll get hired to present your keynote or a workshop, but I always
Mm.
include songs in it.
Okay. Yeah.
I've
I like that.
performed twice in a woman's correctional facility in Hawaii, so that
Okay.
was
Wow.
that was actually a great gig. I was scared going in, but it was a great gig. So
Yeah.
I've again, conferences,
Mhm.
outdoor events.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
been everything and anything. And a couple weeks ago, I was in New York at a conference, and it was my 21st or 22nd year performing at this conference. So this is like
Wow. That's
pretty
great.
cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a mix. So I can do just gigs that are just me as a singer songwriter, guitarist, but a lot of the gigs are also, it can be a survivor conference, it can be a
Mhm,
mental health conference.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I do workshops. I always put my songs into the workshop on healing
okay.
from trauma. So
Okay,
it's a
okay,
mix.
wonderful. Yeah,
I've
yeah.
and then I've recorded 3 CDs so folks can
Okay,
hear 2-minute clips at my website of
okay,
the
yeah.
songs, and then my YouTube.
And
I mean,
YouTube.
I'm going to say a ton. There's a lot of songs on there, me
Mhm,
performing live,
mhm.
and I also share resources. So some is just me
Very
playing and
good.
singing about a song and having fun,
Yes.
and others there's a message to it, and I'm sharing resources about
Yeah.
healing from trauma, abuse, and mental
Yeah.
health. So
Yeah. That's excellent. That's excellent. That keeps you going, keeps you busy. I mean, aside from doing that, I mean, do you have like a regular job, or is
now this is what
this
I've
is what
done.
you? Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I have been cutting back. That's I've been this funny thing called age, and I've got arthritis in my hands, and it's getting in the way. So
Yeah.
acupuncture is helping, and then but there's also something going on with my cervical, so it's
Mm,
impacting. So
yeah.
I'll get through this, but that's why I couldn't play a song tonight because I'm letting it rest, if you will,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
let it heal.
Yeah, that's
So
okay. Yeah, because I wanted you to sing something, but is there a maybe a favorite or something where you can just sort of recite a few verses of or anything
yeah,
like that? Just like to get a
yeah.
taste of.
So this is By My Side. Okay.
Okay.
And again, it's posted online because I think I'd feel funny singing a cappella, but by my side, I'll walk through pouring rain. I'll face the freezing snow. I'll fight the dogs of war. I'll
Mm,
hold my head up high because you're by my side. I feel this sense of peace. I cherish your light of love. I feel your hand in mine. It helps to lighten the load by my side.
mm.
So that's, and it
Wow,
just so, yeah.
I
So
love
go to
that.
the YouTube and hear it because it's a pretty powerful song, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
and short
sounds
and to the
like it.
point.
Okay, good, good, good. I'll do that. So Mike, I did want to ask you something. I wanted to ask about your children and do they know your story? Um, how would
Yes.
they? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh, but like that's hard because a lot of adult children do not want to deal with it.
hmm,
So they're aware that you're doing this, but that's your
yeah,
life. They don't want anything to do with it. So
yeah,
it's just another it's another silencing
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah,
and denial.
yeah,
So and I'm not alone in that.
mm-hmm,
I know too many others. So
yeah,
it stinks, but
mm-hmm,
uh,
yeah, yeah. So,
so
Mike, you spoke about your sort of your thoughts and feelings in terms of being a male and having gone through sexual abuse. What have you? I guess what have you experienced from others and kind of their reaction or their responses or their to that?
I've seen that it has robbed people of their potential. And there's a lot of people that they're existing in the world, but they're just getting by. And,
Mm-hmm,
and so they're glued to the TV, they're in their booze, they're into their drugs,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
whatever it is, onto the computer, video games. And there's nothing wrong with those things. There's nothing wrong with me if you want to have a beer,
Mm-hmm.
I don't, but if that's all there is, so I think it's has robbed people of their potential,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that may be. You don't have to be a musician, you don't have to be an artist.
Yeah.
Did you want to be a carpenter, or did you
Yeah.
want to be an engineer? Did you want to be a teacher?
Mm-hmm.
All these things,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, there are people that have gone on to do things. I just think there's a lot of walking wounded in the world, And I think obviously we're touching on sexual abuse here, but child abuse in general, whether
Yeah.
it's physical, emotional, neglect,
Mhm.
any
Mhm.
one of those or all of them is going to have an impact. And
Yeah.
I can just in my own life, I think of the musicians that I worked with and
Mhm.
what that did to mess them up. I think of friends of mine. It helped me to understand years later why they came from, they were good families, good parents. No one was perfect, but they're acting out, they're taking all the drugs, they're in
Mhm.
trouble, getting crime. Then
Mhm.
I learned later that they had been sexually abused. Maybe it
Mhm.
was a coach, maybe it was a priest, maybe it was
Yeah.
a pastor, maybe
Yeah.
maybe it was the neighbor, maybe it was the person babysitting them.
Right.
So it wasn't
Mhm.
their parents, it was someone. And then like the light bulb went off like, oh, now I know why they were acting out the way they did,
Mhm.
why they were in trouble.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
also see the other side of that though, where like yourself, and others, they're giving back. They're trying to break that cycle. They're raising awareness.
Mhm.
I so it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
I still think, Elaine, that the world is in denial on this.
Mhm.
I st-
Mhm.
People don't want to hear about
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
did, would if we could end child abuse, it would end
Phew.
it would end a lot of would empty the prisons. If you think about it, everybody in those prisons have all been abused at some point in their life.
Mm. Mhm.
So they're acting out
Mhm.
inappropriately, and then they're being.
Mhm.
What would have
Mhm.
happened if someone could have reached out to them to help
Yeah.
them? The
Yeah.
same with the person that's taking all the drugs, the homeless
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
There's a reason for all that pain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Did you find that in your speaking up and out about it that were you believed? Were you did people have like negative, thoughts about you or like from being
Um,
a man, I'm wondering how when you spoke about it, how people
well,
respond.
there was some that have the attitude of just get over it. It's in the past. Why are you
Mm,
going to keep talking about it? So I don't need to keep talking about my story. It's to try to enlighten, to raise. I can't
exactly.
undo what happened to me,
Right.
but if I can help someone else,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll share.
Yeah.
Um, the denial. So, all right, let's talk family. My two remaining siblings, they don't want to hear about this. they,
Mm-hmm.
so I've become ostracized because of that.
Wow. Did they
Um,
experience it?
of course they did.
They did, but okay, wow. So the
So
denial and all of that is so ingrained in them that they can't even hear it from you and
I think of,
share that. Yeah.
cousins, childhood friends that won't. I haven't seen them in decades because
Yeah.
once my stuff came out, they wanted nothing to do with me. So that just as a child, you're feeling dirty and
Mhm.
shameful inside. Then
Mhm.
society reinforces that message. When you do speak out, it's like, oh, stay away from me.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
experienced this when after my divorce and I started dating because I have a website and I do talk about this stuff. It's
Uh-huh.
not like I would meet someone and say, hey, by the way, I'm a sexual abuse survivor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But once did visit my website, I think you're so brave, but so
But
that's just
uh,
reinforcing the message that I don't want anything to do with this. So,
um,
Elaine, I think it's these micro hurts, these cuts, they go on daily.
mhm.
So, and I do believe in speaking out, but I also say to folks, if I'm presenting or even in this show,
Mhm.
I encourage folks to speak out, but I also will understand if they don't want to because the
Yeah.
ramifications, you could lose a job. I've had gigs not want me because of my speaking out. I've had
Wow.
people want to hire me to speak at a conference and then they
Mhm.
say to me, "Hey, can you tone down the child abuse stuff?" And I don't you've heard me. I don't get graphic. I just say I was
Yeah.
abused by my parents.
Yeah.
But they didn't want me to do that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is silencing.
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
So
Wow. Yeah, I think you just answered my next question, which was, what would you say to someone, I mean, especially a child, like, I don't, what do we tell them if they're going through this, they've been through it?
Uh, if this is where I would like to see the schools have more support in place, because that may be the one area, because teachers, if they're savvy, they're going to notice.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's resources there
Mm-hmm.
that can help them,
Yeah.
um, I say that, and at the same time, in the back of my mind, I think of a friend of mine, and she was probably 10, 15 years younger than me. So in seventh grade, she goes down to the guidance counselor to tell her that her father is sexually abusing her. He shuts the door and he rapes her.
Oh my
So,
God.
um,
Mm.
so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
this happens. This is life. This is not, this isn't a movie. This is real life. So trauma survivors can end up being traumatized, re-traumatized again and again.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
but I do wish, and I do see it happening in some schools and some communities, that there is more awareness trying to
Mm-hmm. For
help.
sure.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely when I was coming up, there wasn't anything, or if there was, we didn't know about it. Nobody talked about it. So I will say that I am glad to see, the resources. I am glad to see that people are being more vocal, and that people are, even if it's something that happened way, years ago, and they're remembering now and they're speaking out and not, I mean, I just think speaking up and speaking out is, and keep raising the awareness that this is something that's happening like every day. They say what, every 68 seconds, I
yeah,
think they say there's a sexual assault every 68 seconds. I mean, my gosh. Yeah.
that's horrible.
Yeah.
And to backtrack to what I was saying, again, I don't see everything as, just all negative. I also see
Mhm,
the light, because
mhm.
I also think of folks that I know and friends of mine, whether they had a daughter or a son who then shared that they were being abused. The parent or parents believed them, they got
Yeah.
them help. And I
Yeah.
see these kids, they're bouncing, they're happy,
Yeah.
their smiles are not
Yeah.
like the kids that they don't get the help. So
Right.
if they're listened to, that just makes the
Oh, yeah.
healing so much better. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to say easy, but just
Yeah.
having love and support goes a long way
Mhm.
in healing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really important. Yeah, really important. Um, so Mike, is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we close out?
I'm again thankful for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Grateful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Folks, please visit my website and
Yep.
the YouTube channel. Take
Yeah.
some time listening to some of the songs, because
Yeah.
I go into depth with the songs and also sharing resources. So
Yeah.
that would be, and just find your path to healing, because
Yeah.
we're all different. We can borrow little bits and pieces from each other, but find what's right for you.
Exactly, exactly. And that's, healing in general, because it's not necessarily that people are healing from maybe the trauma of sexual abuse, but there's other traumas and things that
Right.
happen. And yeah, healing is essential.
Right.
I mean, we deserve it, right? We
I
deserve
We deserve it.
it.
You're worth
We
it. You
deserve it.
deserve it.
That's right. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate talking to you. It was great seeing you again. And actually, I may get in touch with you to see about doing something for, I have a play
Oh,
that I do every year during Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is April, called Yet I Stand. And yeah, maybe you can come and sing and speak a little bit or something. We'll talk
that would
about
be
that.
great.
Yeah.
Where is it held,
Well, I
Elaine?
live in Virginia,
Okay,
so it would be here in Virginia. Yeah,
nice.
yeah. So I'll
Yeah,
be
so
in
definitely
touch.
let's stay in touch on that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike, and
Thank you.
we will talk to you soon. And this is pre-recorded. Let everybody know that this is a pre-recorded session. You will be able to see this video on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. on Wednesday, October 26th at 7 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you.
Until next time. Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.